What up, y'all? I am back for another video. Today we are reviewing The Blackening. This was a movie that I saw the trailer for and people wanted me to watch it. And I'll say this, I said this on Instagram. Um, it's not good. It's definitely not good. But it's not horrible either. Granted, the end, the fucking second, basically when we get to the reveal of the killer, it's pretty bad. But it's not as bad as it could have been. I thought this was going to be worse. I do think it does try to be a parody. It feels like a product of that like epic movie, date movie, like post scary movie where there's like all these parody movies. There's like, oh, let's do a black version of a horror movie. Basically, but it's not as good. Obviously, the scary movie had good jokes. There's moments of some good jokes, like some of the questions for like the game, The Blackening. Like there's like a lot of like references to black culture. They even do make a joke about black dark Aunt Viv, light Aunt Viv. The Friends joke was kind of like how many black characters were in Friends. They mentioned living single. Like there's even a joke in the beginning where they reference Scream 2 about Omar Epps and I think that was a question related to that, and they mentioned Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett in Scream 2. So it's like, all right, there's little things like that, but it's not. It didn't make me like chuckle, and it's like, okay, that's a cool reference. But like the humor, I think is a bit try hard. They very much is a lot of like the white jokes were very cringe to me. It was like borderline. This is what someone thinks of white people. It wasn't like for me. I'm not even like don't make those jokes, but you gotta make jokes about black people just as hard. And I feel like something like "Don't Be a Menace" to South Central did that way better. Where yeah, that movie joked about white people, but it went on everybody. That's the humor. If you're gonna do the Boondocks, same thing. Boondocks says a lot of stuff about white people, but it says about shit about everyone. They don't hold back, and I think this didn't. I feel like it was very much like kid gloves with the black jokes. And the characters are just not likable. There's even a moment where Granny Clifton, I'll spoil, he's like the nerdy kind of black stereotypical, not I guess what people would call a you act white kind of thing. But he turns out he's the killer. I'll just spoil that part, and it's so bad. Even his motive, which I'll get into, I'll just spoil it. His motive. His motive is like he fucking basically felt left out of the group. It's the stereotypical like, oh, I'm the outcast of your group, and even his voice, like it was like I had a feeling he was gonna be the killer because he was like that kind of like that's what they were gonna do, and he voted Trump. It was like, oh yeah, yeah, because this is how clearly the person who wrote this movie thinks of that. Like, if you're a black person who voted Trump, God forbid you have different politics. Um, but even then, it just wasn't funny. The reveal was cringe. His plan made no sense. So I guess he left a party. He ended up getting falsely, I guess, because he ended up getting drunk because he was mad about what happened, and then he ended up hitting somebody and he had to do time. So he wanted to it's basically revenge, and it ruined the movie. I think, like I said, there was bits of moments where some of the jokes worked, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world. It wasn't as bad as I thought it could have been. I thought this was going to be an absolute shit show. I thought movie was going to be like, oh, this is going to be dog shit. I won't call it that. It's not good. It's a 5.5 out. I gave it a 6 on Instagram, but I probably would bring it down to a 5.5. But not as bad as it could have been. So that's the kind of thing I'm going to give it. I don't know if I'd say recommend it. I'd almost say just if you want to experience it. It's only an hour and a half. There might be some bits you might find funny, like I didn't, but I wouldn't. I mean, it's out on like home video now or digital, so just if you can find it somewhere, I guess if you want to check it out, it's only an hour and a half. It's not long at all. But like I said, none of the characters are likable. I barely remember their name. I remember like Dwayne, who's like the kind of the gay guy. Lisa, who's like the main character, her boyfriend Namdi, and I don't even remember the other dude's name. I think it's like Omar. It starts with an L. And then there's this fat girl. I don't remember her name, so I'm just gonna call her Big Girl because I don't remember her name fucking all. And then Clifton, who's the killer. But yeah, none of them are likable. Like, you don't care about their like, because like their little stories is like Lisa is taking back her boyfriend Namdi, but there's tension between him and some of the friend group because he cheated on her all the time. It's like we're supposed to care about that, but it's weird because yeah, it's a parody movie. You're not supposed to fully like. But even I actually did an original take of fucking phone fucked up, and it like stopped recording. So in my original recording, I mentioned like Scary Movie. You had Cindy Campbell. He had a character you somewhat cared about. Um, fucking Don't Be a Menace had Trey and Oda, Ashtray and Odog or Loke Dog. Sorry. Like you had characters in those movies, and those are parody movies. Even like Spy Hard and like some of those others, you had characters you cared about. I disagree. Like just because they're a parody movie, you can't just they're just there. But like none of these characters, I didn't care about their little like, stories or anything. They were just like there to just die for me. So, but I guess before we get started, I'll get into what I got going on this week. Today, later today, I'll be doing my top 8 1993 films. My list is made, so I'll be doing that later. Tomorrow, for sure, I'll be doing Tomorrow Never Dies. Wednesday, I'll be doing Braveheart. Thursday, Starship Troopers 3, finally. Friday, as of now, I'll be doing Candyman 3. And then I don't think I'm going to do anything Saturday. We'll see. And then Sunday, I'll be doing Mission Impossible 7. Unless I see, because I don't know when I'm going to see it yet. I don't know if it comes out Wednesday, but I don't know what's going on Wednesday or Thursday. If I can see it Wednesday or Thursday, if I end up seeing it Wednesday or Thursday, then the schedule will change. I'll probably review Mission Impossible 7 then on Friday, and then do Candyman 3 on Sunday. But as of now, I'm doing it the other way, where I'm going to do Candyman 3 on Friday. It depends. It really depends on when I see Mission Impossible 7. But, yeah, let's get started into the Blackening. So basically, yeah, group of friends at the cabin, and they have to survive. But that's pretty much all of it. The movie's simple in that sense. Nothing else really. So, movie opens. We meet our Morgan and her boyfriend. They're supposed to be meeting the group that's comes later at the cabin. They end up finding this game, The Blackening, which has like this like racist caricature on the cover. Which I'll admit, that aspect I kind of find funny, just because how over the top the drawing was. And they start playing it, and one of the questions she answers was Scream 2, or because I think somebody mentioned like I think it was like what movie would the black guy survive, and none of them answered like No Night of the Living Dead, which technically, yeah, even though besides the end he does end up getting killed technically, but if you're gonna be honest, he survives like a horse. Like he survives most of the movie, like he survived the zombies, so in a way he did still win there. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Brandy survives in the end. Or I still know the second one. But I like that someone did mention Scream 2, and they mentioned Omar Epps. And granted, it's partially because I do love Scream, so I love any kind of Scream reference. Her boyfriend ends up getting killed because I think he answers the question wrong. Morgan tries to escape. She ends up getting captured. Then this is where we meet our leads. One side we meet Dwayne driving and talking with Lisa and I don't remember I'll just say dude with. He's supposed to be like a former gangster, so he's like a former gangster dude who like he's like this. Because even when we first meet him, he's like pulled over by the cops and who I met Officer White, which is played by Diedrich Bader, who you do see throughout the film. He was kind of funny. Like I think in general, I do find him funny and stuff, so I think that partially is why. But he's not in the movie much. You only get him a couple of scenes and then he dies. They made you like they even do try to make it seem like he's one of the killers, and no. So they talk about like what's gonna happen at the cabin. And Lisa's keeping it secret that Namdi, her ex-boyfriend, who cheats on like the little stories just I do not care about. I don't care. It's like these are just characters to me. They're just there to fill a body count. And on the other side, trying to also go into the cabin is this big girl, and she meets Clifton, who you see throughout in this scene. You see like a clerk staring at them, and I'll get into him really quick. He and his twin brother are like the actual killers who are doing like the actual killings. Like it's like we're supposed to think it's a big deal, but we don't even see him throughout the film. This is like the only time I think we see him. There may be another scene we see him, but I don't think we do until they take the mask off. It's like if you're gonna do a reveal like that, I understand it's a parody movie. You could say I'm overthinking it, but it doesn't work when you like if you're gonna like look at Scream. When the killers are revealed it's a big deal because you were with the killers most of the time throughout the film. So you get that shocked feeling because, oh my God, you were with us the whole way through. Like Billy and Stu is like the perfect example of that, you know? And in this, the reveal just doesn't matter with these two. Clifton's like the only one, I guess, to an extent, because when he thought he died, and he's, I guess, kind of with them for at least a bit in the film. So there's at least that, but anyway. So they get to the cabin. They start doing drugs and kind of start partying and playing games. Clifton and the other girl arrive. And then, Dwayne starts getting in a bad mood because he finds out that Lisa is back together with him. Because I guess he cheats. It's like, whatever. They find the game. And I'll admit, the part where they do find the Blackening game is kind of funny. And then they start playing it. And the questions were great. The one about Light Aunt Viv and Dark Aunt Viv was great. I like that reference. The Friends one was kind of funny. That was like the last question. And you see Morgan on the TV. It's like, it very much felt like, well, I was even saying this when I first saw the trailer, was that this felt like Black Saw. Like, because Saw had that same kind of premise. You got to answer, or either somebody else, or you, or you die. So I think they end up answering one of the questions wrong because they were getting a lot of the questions right for a little bit, and then they get one question wrong, and Lisa ends up getting killed. Not Lisa, Morgan. Sorry, Morgan ends up getting killed. And then they have to basically vote who the blackest is, basically be the sacrifice, or they all die kind of thing. And they end up, because they can't stop playing, which even though the movie doesn't really, it hints at what happens if they don't stop playing. Obviously you can deduce if they all stop playing, they all die, but it's like, why don't you all, like, there is a point where I'm like, you could just stop playing and see what happens, because they didn't tell you. It's like, I guess it's obvious, but it's, I don't know. I think you could have risked it, especially when we see what the killers actually, because they just use crossbows the whole time, which I guess is kind of cool, but I don't know. It doesn't, they're not they don't. I don't feel confident in them anyway, and we don't get a lot of them because it's mostly them being locked in the fucking room for at least this portion of the movie is at least a good, I don't know, 30 minutes before, like, well, one of them when they vote, um, and they start arguing about who the blackest is, and this is supposed to divide them, right? And they end up voting for Clifton because he reveals he voted for Trump twice. Because he was basically trying to prove that he's not black, like he hadn't seen Friday, which I thought that was funny. I thought that bit was kind of funny. But when he really voted for Trump twice, they all turned on him and basically let him to die. I understand we know he's the killer now, so it doesn't, or later on, but it does, like, there is no repercussions for that. Like, I'm supposed to like these people? Like, they voted for a dude to die because he didn't like his politics. I don't know. That's kind of, it's weird. It's Hollywood's weird, fucked up morality sometimes that seems through these movies, and it's like, oh, okay, that what you think? Anyway, he ends up dying. And then I think the doors open at this point, and they have a bit of time to get away. The next joke is they decide they have to split up, but like it's supposed to be like funny because, like, you know, that's like the joke that most black people make in these horror movies. Why does everyone split up? Like, I think if written better, like, that joke could have worked, but I just felt like a lot of these jokes at times were just forced, and it brings the movie down a bit. But so they split up. One of them runs into Officer White, which I'll admit that joke was, his joke was kind of, he was the funniest, and that's partially because it's Diedrich Bader. I think he's in general a funny dude, so he can make it work, but he's not in it a lot. So this was like the last bit because he's helping him, and then he ends up getting killed. They end up fighting the killers and overpowering them, and we get the reveal that the killer is the guy from the clerk. And then there's another one that shows up, and that guy ends up getting killed, and it's his twin brother. So they did realize that somebody's hiring them. They go back to the cabin. This is where we find out that Clifton's the killer. And for me, his motive was just cringe. It's very much that typical, I was never the popular kid. It's something similar like that. I wasn't the popular kid, and I wasn't a lot of, y'all made fun of me for not being the blackest. So, because what ended up happening was he ended up going to jail because he got really drunk after, I guess they made fun of him for not being the blackest, and like when they were playing spades or cards or something like that. And he ends up, because he ended up hitting somebody, like, and he did time. So it was like so cringe in the way it was delivered. It was, he should have been like a Steve Urkel. If you're gonna have a character like that, he should have been the Urkel. Making him the killer was so cringe, and I called it just because of one when the whole Trump thing came out. I'm like, oh yeah, he's definitely the killer. I was already suspecting it just because, like, they're gonna make it the nerdy guy who felt shunned or something from the group, and yeah, that's what they did. It was predictable, and it was very kind of cringy how it was delivered, and so they end up distracting him. The Namdi Sparta kicks him essentially into a giant well, and he dies. I'll bet this joke was funny. The firefighters show up, and then they get out of the house, and they just spray him. I'll bet that was funny. So, like, that part was funny, but it just, if there was more of those type of jokes in the movie, it could have worked better. I just think they were playing it soft. But it does feel like it would have came out in that era. And it's not the worst thing in the world. It could have been better, though, for what it was. But it's not as bad as it was. So I'm giving it a 5, 5.5. 5.5, I'll stick with that. 5.5. There were some jokes in there. The characters aren't likable. The killers don't matter, even though it's a comedy parody movie. I think they should have leaned more, do a bit more on the edgy side jokes, too. I think the jokes were a bit safe. Especially when, And yeah, I just if you want to watch it just to see, just to say you saw it, I guess it's not long. Not like you're gonna be there forever. It's only an hour and a half, but I'm not gonna say it's definitely not objectively good. And I don't think I probably won't go back to it. I'll probably stick with like Don't Be a Menace. But yeah. But later on, not top 8 1993 movies. I can't wait to do that. But yeah, 6.5. And like I said, I thought this was gonna be way worse than it could have been. But at least I could say it's better than. It's definitely better than the Flash in Indy, and I know that's a low bar because literally anything's better than the Flash in Indy. But yeah, because I was thinking in my head, like, I have a feeling I'm gonna like this better than the Flash, and I do. I definitely will. If I had to be forced to watch one again, definitely I'm picking the Blackening over the Flash. Same with Indy 5. So anyway, cheers, and I'll talk to y'all later. As usual. Talk to y'all later. Peace.